pointer thing. And as you can see, up here is the shaking. It goes from green to red. And the sealing goes from red to green. And so the shaking goes from green to red because back in 1930, 1970, 1985, there wasn't much shaking going on. And now we've been in the shaking for a while. It hasn't got real bad yet, but it's starting to. And it's going to. I mean, you can see that now. I mean, if you look at everything going on with Pastor Vine and, all of this stuff, everything that can be shaken will be shaken, and people are going to be shaken out. But there's two people in the Adventist church, according to what Sister White says, okay? There are those who meet the description of Ezekiel 9:4, but let me say this first. As you're going to see very soon, Ellen White connected Ezekiel's chapter 8 and 9 with end-time events and the close of probation. I'm going to prove that to you, okay? But for right now, there's two sets of people that are in the Adventist church. Those are the ones that fit Ezekiel 9:4. They're sighing and crying over the abominations that are done in the church and in their own life, okay? That what I have up there, that's early writings, 269 and 270. And that's where she makes it clear that there's these two types of people, okay? And so Ezekiel 8 and 15 and 16 tells us that the greatest of all the abominations is sun worship. There's Ezekiel 9:4. There's Ezekiel 8 and 16. And so the other group that's in the church are those who are indifferent about the ongoing sin in the church and in their own self. And according to early writings, the shaking is brought on, like we said earlier, by the straight testimony. And some will exalt the standard, and many will not bear it, and they will rise up against it. And we're told on page 271 of early writings that those who exalt the straight testimony are going to receive the latter rain, and those will be the ones that give the loud cry. And so I'm going to read you some quotes as it concerns the shaking from Ellen White, okay? The first one is from Volume 5 of the Testimonies. All right, Volume 5 of the Testimonies. It is page 79, paragraph 4. But the days of purification of the church are hastening apace. God will have a people pure and true. In the mighty sifting soon to take place, we shall be able to better understand and measure the strength of Israel. The signs reveal that the time is near when the Lord will manifest that his fan is in his hand and he will thoroughly purge his floor. The next is from 4th volume of the Testimonies, page 89. It says, prosperity multiplies a mass of professors, but adversity purges them out of the church. Now, the next one is from Evangelism 360. In the absence of the persecution, there have drifted into our ranks men who appear sound and their Christianity unquestionable, but who, if persecution should arise, would go out from us. Then there's two selected messages, 368. When the law of God is made void, the church will be sifted by fiery trials, and a larger proportion than we now anticipate will give heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. And then there's Testimonies to Ministers, 45, paragraph 1. Has God no living church? He has a church, but it is the church militant, not the church triumphant. We are sorry that there are defective members, that there are tares amid the wheat. So there's tares amid the wheat, she says. And as you can see up here on the timeline, I have the church militant to the church triumphant, and the wheat and the tare are separated. This happens here at phase 1 of the Sunday law. Okay, so we are, in my estimation of things, we're about right here, I guess. That's my guess. I don't really know for sure. But, the image of the beast will be set up. And then we're looking at phase 1. And there's 4 phases to the Sunday law. But that's the main point in the shaking, is that it's going to start right here. And the shaking's going to start back here, but when it ends, the shaking's going to end here, and it'll be the church triumphant, not the church militant. And the tares will be separated from the wheat. And so what I want to do is I want to give you some witnesses from the Bible. In Deuteronomy chapter 20, it's titled Principles of Governing Warfare. Okay? And so it's interesting because in the beginning of that chapter, what you have is you have the priests. And the priests are speaking to the people and they're saying, "Fear not, for the Lord God is with you." All right, and so he goes on saying this for a couple verses, and then what you see in verse 5, you see that the officers show up, and they start talking to the people, and they start releasing the worldly. And they start doing that by this. They do it like this. They say, "For those who have houses and haven't lived in them, you can leave. For those who have planted vineyards you haven't eaten from them, you can leave." And he goes on, they go on and on with these worldly things that people are focused on. And then when it gets to the end, they say, "If you're fearful, then you should leave." And then there's a story in Judges chapter 7 about a man named Gideon. I think this is very interesting. It's in Judges 7, and he starts out with 32,000. Okay, and so the Lord, he said, "That's too many, Gideon." And so Gideon was told to release all who were fearful. 22,000 left. Lord says that's still too many. And so he said, "I'm going to test them further." And so he does. And he tests them further. And the ones who were focused on the battlefield were the ones that remained. The Lord used 300 out of 32,000. That's less than 1%. Now, what's interesting about that, that's going to move us into the ceiling here in just a minute, but I think I can bring clarity on such a low percentage. First of all, Sister White says this in Last Day Events. She says that the church may appear about to fall, but it does not fall, it remains. As the sinners in Zion are sifted out, the chaff are separated from the wheat. And so the ones that are left are going to give the loud cry. The ones sifted out are going to be replaced by those out of Babylon. We know this by the spirit of prophecy. So there's about 25 million-ish or 22 million-ish, somewhere in there, approximately, Seventh-day Adventists. And so it's going to appear that we're about to fall. We lose a lot of members, but then they're going to be replaced from those coming out of Babylon. And so the same number that we started with, we're going to end up with, basically, unless you're martyred or whatever. But, the point I'm trying to make is that out of 7.5 billion people, if you take 25 million, that's still less than 1%. And that's interesting to me. I don't know if you know this or not, but there's no other church that has a larger worldly presence than us, other than the Roman Catholic Church. That's it. So here's the quotation. Now, if you don't hear anything else I say today, I need you to hear this. This is absolutely key in our understanding and for our timeline, okay? Testimonies to Ministers, page 445, paragraphs 1 and 2. Sister White says this: "This sealing of the servants of God is the same that was shown to Ezekiel in vision. John also had been a witness of this most startling revelation. Having this information, we can take Revelation 7 and Ezekiel 9, and we can study them together, and we can understand several things. We can understand when the sealing begins, what happens when the sealing is over. We can understand who is sealed and why. And now we know that the greatest abomination is sun worship. And that actually commences the sealing. And according to Ezekiel 9 and 4, those who sigh and cry over the abominations are sealed according to Revelation chapter 7. Lost track of my... Let me catch up. There it is. Revelation 7, 1 through 3. So what I'm telling you is, based on that quotation, okay, Ezekiel's chapter 8 and 9 are the same sealing that we see in Revelation chapter 7. John sees a sealing going on amongst the servants of God where they are being sealed in their forehead. And so she says that's the same sealing. And so, with that, Revelation 7, 1 through 3, it says, after these things I saw four angels standing at the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, and that the wind should not blow on the earth or on the sea or any tree. Then I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the four angels to whom it was granted to harm the earth and the sea, saying, do not harm the earth, the sea, or the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. So, same sealing. Okay. And I'm calling this up here, I'll tell you again here in a minute, but this is my little time of trouble. It's what I'm calling it. Okay, this is the sealing. All throughout here, this is the sealing. And I told you we have 4 phases of the Sunday law. So within this little time of trouble, which is not really a little time of trouble, compared to what we have now, this is big trouble. Don't get me wrong or mistake me. But there is 3 phases within this, and then this little time of trouble closes when the sanctuary is cleansed at the general close of probation. So there's a lot going on there. Okay? And so right here in phase 1, this is a rest. So you must rest on Sunday. Okay? The image of the beast will be formed. Okay? And then you will see the second beast speak as a dragon, which is America. They will enforce laws to where you have to rest on Sunday. All right, and so what I have here is I have that the Sunday law is enforced. You must rest on Sunday. And you have the loud cry of Revelation 18 going out, and the judgment of the living per Ezekiel 8 and 9 starts here. Okay? The probation starts to close for Adventists here. Now, when I say that it starts to close for Adventists, what I mean is, if the sealing starts in America here and the angel comes and passes me by and seals Bill, his probation's over, mine's over. I mean, that's it, that's all. And it's going on. And then, when we get up here to this faith, because the Adventist people, us, ones who are sealed and filled, we're going to be used for the loud cry. So it doesn't make much sense that we wouldn't be sealed back here because the mark of the beast is here. You understand? This is where it is. The mark of the beast is in phase 2, right here. This is where you must honor Sunday. And if you look at Revelation 13, the text reads worship. That's when the worship is involved. Okay? So let me tell you what Sister White says about phase 1, okay? She says this in Last Day Events 139. She says, refraining from work on Sunday is not the mark of the beast. In places where the opposition is so strong as to arouse persecution if work is done on Sunday, let our brethren make that day an occasion to do genuine missionary work. Okay? So we have to use common sense, not bring unnecessary persecution upon ourselves, is what she's saying. But, when they announce a rest day for Sunday, it doesn't mean you're taking the mark of the beast if you chill out at the house. Okay? I probably wouldn't go mow my dad's yard on Sunday or something. That's what she's saying. It's going to be a time, though, at this time when that happens, see, we're being sanctified more and more. So we're going to want to go out and do missionary work, so that's going to be our assignment. But, like I said, the loud cry is going out in phase 1, and the judgment of the living is happening. And so Revelation 18, 1 to 4, this is famously known as, the third angel's message, the loud cry. And after this, I saw another angel come down from heaven having power and great glory. The earth was lightened with his glory, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, the hold of every foul spirit, and cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues, for her sins have reached unto heaven. God had remembered her iniquities." That's us giving this message. That's us giving this message. And so this is sanctification, really, what you're seeing here in us. God almost has a people who are sanctified and victorious over sin. And when that's complete in his people, then what the world's going to see is they're going to see, well, this is a good one. This speaks of the gospel. "For I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto that salvation to everyone that believes, to the Jew first and also the Greek. For therein, the gospel, is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith." That's us. That's us. And then this is what the people should be seeing in us by the time we get to phase 2. "Arise, shine, for your light has come. The glory of the Lord is risen upon you. The Lord will arise over you, and his glory will be seen upon you." This is what people should be seeing in us by the time that the mark of the beast comes. So, yes, there's going to be evangelism going on, and that's an understatement. But back to the timeline. You might wonder, well, why does Adventist probation close here and everybody else's don't close till here? Well, simply because they don't know. They don't know. We know. We have the message. We have the truth. We've been given the light, and we're going to be judged for the amount of light that we have. And 1 Peter 4:17 is a witness. It says, "For the time has come that judgment must begin in the house of God." So judgment begins in the house of God. And, you're looking at when this whole thing starts and Sunday law is enacted, then, it's not a very big window of time. I mean, we're talking about a year and a half, 2-year time frame, maybe. I don't know. I mean, maybe 3, but I'm not real sure, but it's not long. And according to Ezekiel 8 and 9 and Testimonies from Ministers 4:4-5, we can see that this judgment or sealing begins when false worship or sun worship begins. Okay, so we can see why that little time of trouble commences and the sealing commences. It's because the sins have reached to heaven, and now we have the greatest abomination is happening, and they're keeping people from, it's starting to happen, just like we see in Ezekiel 8 and 9. There's abominations in the church. All right, and so then if we move to phase 2, like I said, this is the mark of the beast, and you must honor Sunday, but you can still go and keep Sabbath. Now, I see this as being the point where many Adventists get tripped up, okay? Because their mindset is going to be, well, I'm keeping Sabbath, so I can go hang with the Sunday people, no big deal. But that's not the way it's going to work. And God's going to frown on that, and unfortunately, they'll be, looking at taking the mark of the beast if they go that route. But here's where, this is where the second beast really speaks as a dragon. And I've got all these scriptures up here. Revelation 13, 16, 17, that's just talking about the mark. Job 10 and 14, that's just, if I sin, then you mark me. Psalms 37, 37, that's mark the perfect man. For at the end of that man will be peace. And then Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 8, that talks about, bind the commandments upon your hand and seal them, between the front of your eyes. So memorize them. So there's there's a lot going on here in the first and second phases. That's a lot, you know. And this is said from Counsels for the Church 268, paragraph 2. Whoever obeys the fourth commandment will find that a separating line is drawn between him and the world. The Sabbath is a test, not a human requirement, but God's test. It is that which will distinguish between those who serve God and those who serve him not. And the reason that I put that quotation up there is because it speaks to, you know, if people have this idea that they can, you know, keep Sabbath and still go on Sunday. Spirit of Prophecy says no. And you know, so then we have the scriptures that I just went over, the Job and Psalms and Deuteronomy and Ezekiel and Revelation, and we're back to the timeline. Okay. So that word "all" means all. The reason that I read all of these, you know, Job 10:14, Psalms 37. So you're going to be marked by God, you're going to be marked by the beast. And then we're going to move into phase 3 now, because that's pretty simple to grasp. But phase 3 is where it's worship on Sunday only. All right, it's still mark of the beast. You can't worship on Sabbath no more. This is where social pressure increases. There's fines and imprisonment. And then the no buy, no sell. Because you got to ask yourself, how can I pay fines if I can still buy and sell? How do they expect me to pay fines if I can still buy and sell? So that comes in phase 3. And that's going to be getting bad. And, it's getting really bad around here. But when it gets to here, you're talking about real persecution going on. And it's going to be really bad there. And so then, let me put up this other quotation. It is Historical Sketches 156.1. It says, "Wonderful events are soon to open before the world. The end of all things is at hand. The time of trouble is about to come upon the people of God. Then it is that the decree will go forth, forbidding those who keep the Sabbath of the Lord to buy and sell, and threatening them with punishment and even death if they don't observe the first day of the week as the Sabbath." So, third phase. And so I put this up here so you could see, and you know, don't ever let anybody tell you that the buy sell is just, you know, symbolic. It's not. Spirit of Prophecy tells us otherwise. But I want to speak on this for just a minute. This scripture right here, because what I want you to know is the mark of the beast it's a deception for most of the Protestant world. You know, I know that Adventists have known what it is since you've been going to church, but you have to stop and think. I mean, most Adventists, they don't have any idea what the mark of the beast is. Well, they think they do. You know, they think that it's this or that. But Revelation 19:20 says it's a deception. And the reason that it says it's a deception is because of what I just said. You know, most people don't know what it is. It says, "And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast." And so my point is this. Now, even though they think it's different things, a chip in their hand or you know, whatever it may be, it doesn't matter, whatever it may be, there's one signifier that they look for, and that's to not buy and sell. Okay? And, you know, the reason I bring that up is because by the time that they say you can't buy or sell no more at phase 3, they're going to start to realize, hey, man. Well, I mean, a lot of the people that are in the Protestant churches will. Maybe I'm on the wrong side of this thing, you know. And so the last thing we have on this timeline, this is where the sanctuary is cleansed. This is actually where Michael stands up. And this is the general close of probation. And ours close here. The rest of the world's closes here. And then we see that the angels are going to let go of the four winds at this point. The sealing work is done. This is the sealing work, okay? It goes from red to green, you see? From red all the way to green. Our probation closes here. We're being sealed here in this yellow and greenish area. And then it goes all the way to here, and then it's closed, and then mercy no longer pleads. But Revelation 7:1-4 tells us that this is when the angels let go of the four winds. At this point, you're marked or sealed. And the words from Revelation 22:11 will come from the temple, from Jesus Christ. He will say, he who is unjust, let him be unjust still. He who is filthy, let him be filthy still. He that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still. That's the general close of probation. And so then the plagues began. Okay, so now we're going to have a little fun in explaining this, I guess. I mean, for me it is. It's kind of, I like the spiritual aspect of this, along with what Uriah Smith said. But this first plague is boils and grievous sores. And so I am going to quote from the book Daniel and Revelation by Uriah Smith, okay? He said, there is no apparent reason why this should not be regarded as strictly literal. That's page 687. And he goes on to make the point that these plagues are almost identical with that which God inflicted upon Egypt as he was about to deliver his people from bondage. So that's great. I agree with what he says. And we can sure that we're going to see grievous sore on folks, you know. And so this is our indicator that the general close of probation has happened, right? But I'm going to take this a step further. For the sake of seeing all the angles I believe the Lord wants us to see and really think this through. Again, I agree with the literal, you know, there's going to be literal boils on people, but I just can't get past the spiritual implications of the six plagues. You know, for example, in Leviticus 14, if we look biblical at this, there's a chapter devoted to cleansing the lepers. And in Jesus' time, those people were perceived as the lowest of the low. I mean, a rabbi couldn't even get close to these people, right? These people who were sick or who were blind were looked down on. And we see this in John 9:2. His disciples, they say to him, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents? You see, that's their mindset. He must have done something wrong in order for him to be this way. So, you know, so skin disease was symbolic for spiritual lack, you know, in the Old Testament. We know that a festering sore inwardly, it can kill the eternal soul. And a person with a dying soul is going to be sick. And so the spiritual sickness is going to show in the behavior of the wicked, is what I'm saying. The internal ugliness will be revealed for all to see. And actually, it's because of their spiritual sickness that so many will receive the mark in the right hand. You know, if you think about it. Because as it pertains to their works, you know, we could look at many accounts of skin disease. We're not going to. And how it relates to the first plague, but if you want to research that, by all means do it. But if what I'm saying is true, okay, if what I'm saying is true, then the opposite will be true for those who receive the seal of God. And that's what we see a lot of. You know, I just showed you in Romans 1:16 and 17, Revelations 18:1-4, and also in Isaiah 60:1-2. So if what I'm saying is true and that spiritual ugliness will be showing through more and more, well, this will be showing through more and more in the people of God, is what I'm saying. So then we go to plague number 2. Okay, so this is where the seas turn to blood. And the spiritual application is that discontent and hatred have grown even stronger. It will be near impossible for economic policies to continue. Human civilization is going to darken and congeal like the blood of a dead man. And then we've arrived now at phase 4, not plague 4, but phase 4. This is the death decree. It is between plagues 2 and 3. This is the time of Jacob's trouble. Okay. Where you at? There you are. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble. Okay, so that's where we are here in phase 4. It's between plagues 2 and 3. Now, plague 3 is rivers and springs turned to blood. And there's a reason that we know that the death decree is there. We see there's a pause in the angel's work, and the angel says in verse 6, "For they have shed the blood of the saints and the prophet, and thou hast given them blood to drink." So it's like this. God answers the wicked with his own death decree. And this is where Jacob's trouble really begins. And I believe this plague is describing to us a total poisoning of every source of wisdom on earth. This is where the total global collapse of the truth is seen. And I'll just add that there are not many martyrs here, according to the spirit of prophecy. The beast kingdom is pretty overwhelmed with the plagues of God. Most of the martyrdom is done back in what I'm calling the little time of trouble. Why should he skip all of them? But anyways, most of the martyrdom is done back in here and not here. I mean, even though there's a death decree, there's not. She says not one martyr at this time. All right, so plague number 4, the sun scorches men. I'm going to quote from Uriah Smith on this. He said, "It is worthy of notice that every succeeding plague tends to augment the calamity of the previous one and to heighten the anguish of the guilty sufferers who have now a noisome and grievous sore preying upon men, inflaming their blood and pouring its feverish influence through their veins. And in addition to this, they have only to allay their burning thirst, as if to crown all power is given unto the sun, and it pours upon them a flood of fire and scorches them with great heat." That sounds pretty rough. "And still they curse God." And then plague number 5. Plague number 5, darkness, pains, and sores. All right, and in this world of darkness, festering with spiritual ugliness, where everything has been rendered meaningless, hopeless, and wicked, people are sucked into the black hole of their own unfulfilled desires. And so by the time we move to plague 6, support for the beast kingdom is wavering big time. It's drying up. And here's where I'm going to pause just for a second. And I'm going to say, as you know, the last time we had some questions about the impersonation of Christ happening at here about, just before the 6th plague. And I went home and I looked at this pretty intently, at when Satan impersonates Christ, that is. And, I agreed with everyone before this, because it's like how does that make sense? I mean, because if everybody is sealed or marked here, why does he impersonate Christ here? Well, I want to point out something to you in manuscripts 16, 1884, paragraph 1. Sister White says this: "Satan sees that he is about to lose his case. He cannot sweep in the whole world. He makes one more last desperate effort to overcome the faithful by deception. He does this by impersonating Christ. He clothes himself with garments of royalty, which have been accurately described in the vision of John. He has power to do this, and he will appear to his deluded followers, the Christian world, who received not the love of the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness." And then she goes on to say, one more effort, and then Satan's last device is employed. He hears the unceasing cries for Christ to come, which is going to happen at Jacob's trouble. He hears the unceasing cries for Christ to come, and but the last strategy is to impersonate Christ and make them think their prayers are answered. This answers to the last closing work: "The abomination of desolation stand in the holy place." and to really make sense of what Ellen White is saying, then we go back to the word and we look at the language being used in the sixth plague. And what I need you to understand is I believe that this is layered like an onion. It really is. And so Uriah Smith, he has his own take on this, and I'll go into that when I do the Daniel 11 presentation. But he believes that there's a Turkish tie-in and all that, but I'm not discounting it at this time. I'm just there's a lengthy explanation in the book Daniel and Revelation, if you want to look at that. But for now, to make sense of this appearing, what I want to do is I want to look at the text of question. Revelation 16:12. The sixth angel poured out its vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water there was dried up, and the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. So the spiritual take on this is the river Euphrates is that which supported ancient Babylon. We know that in the account of Daniel that the Medes and the Persians diverted the river. And Revelation 17:15 we know is people. And I believe that we're seeing the people support drying up for the beast system at this time. And because and since the plague started falling, they feel like that they've been lied to. And I'm not talking about the Protestant church. They've realized that a long time ago. I'm talking about the world. I showed you Revelation 19:20 as a deception. The mark of the beast is a deception. But this really is layered pretty deep. But Revelation 16:13 says, and I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. And this is an attempt to regain the confidence of the world to go to battle against the people of God. Now, finally, I want to show you an interesting statement here. In Spalding and McGann, it's page 2, paragraph 1. It says, then I saw Jesus' work in the sanctuary will soon be finished. And after his work there is finished, he will come to the door of the first apartment and confess the sins of Israel upon the head of the scapegoat. Then he will put on the garments of vengeance. Then the plagues will come upon the wicked, and they do not come till Jesus puts on the garment and takes his place upon the great white cloud. And notice this on the same page. Then while the plagues are falling, the scapegoat is being led away. He makes a mighty struggle to escape, but he is held fast by the hand that leads him. If he should effect their escape, Israel would lose their lives. And I saw it would take time to lead away the scapegoat into the land of forgetfulness after the sins were put on his head. And so here's what we're seeing, I believe. I want you to think of the book of Job, okay? Michael has stood up. Mercy no longer pleads. And God says, here are my servants. These are the ones that keep the commandments of God. I have sealed them in their foreheads. And Satan says, wait a minute. If I can get these people to fall, if I can impersonate Christ and get one more shot of them, then I win the great controversy because you said they were now faithful. And that's why I believe we have to be faithful today. And I think that that's where the confusion lies. I believe that after researching what she said and all her quotations, I believe that's where we're at. But, I don't believe that it's possible, for what it's worth, I don't believe that it's possible for the elect to be deceived because they have a prophetic order. More than that, they're going to be settled into the truth, okay? And they're not going to give in because they know about this fake personation of Christ. Then the 7th plague is going to happen. And Jesus is going to say, it is finished. It's heard coming out of the temple in heaven. There's going to be noises, thunderings, lightnings, and there will be a great earthquake. Every island move, every mountain will not be found. Great hailstones will fall upon men, and still they will curse God. Plague number 7. The persecutions are over, and not many of God's people remain. And shortly after the last plague, Jesus comes for his church, and we go with him for 1,000 years. And that's what I believe the word and spirit of prophecy are telling us. And we could fill in the blanks more if we had time, but there's a lot to be said. Now, this is in closing, I promise. I told y'all I was going to speak on the abomination of desolation, and I'm going to in a later time. But I'm just going to say this. It's important as it concerns our timeline. The abomination is when Jesus and the Word are taken away from man for man-made traditions. there will come desolation because of that. This happened in the time of Jeremiah. This happened in 70 AD. And it's going to happen again by the passing of the Sunday law. The desolation was brought on by sun-worshiping pagans the first two times. That would have been Babylon and Rome. And the third time, I believe it's going to be brought on by moon-worshiping pagans, instigated by the papacy. And, I'll present that to you in Daniel 11. It's very interesting. But for now, I just need you to track with me on this. When the holy is combined with the profane, or that which is common, it's an abomination. One example of that is animal sacrifice to atone for our sins in a temple made with hands. Another is Sunday law, forcing people to worship on a day that has no scriptural backing. The 5 pillars of our faith are the second coming, the Sabbath, the sanctuary, the state of the dead, and the spirit of prophecy. And the only faith out there that's teaching the sanctuary message is the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Now, why does that matter? And why is that important? Well, because we understand that in 1844, Jesus entered into the most holy place, right? Well, there's 3 gospel accounts of the abomination of desolation. And if you look at Matthew 24 and 15, it says, "When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, let him who reads understand." Now, for everyone who has paid attention to the sanctuary message, you know that Jesus isn't in the holy place. He's in the most holy place. So 99% of the world, they want to keep Jesus in the holy place for a justification-only salvation, or justification alone gospel. And the world will tell you that once you're saved, you're always saved, or that if you repeat this prayer, then you're going to be saved. But that's not true. The Bible teaches us in Matthew 1 and 21, it tells us that we are saved from sins and not eternal torment. And with that said, not one person will be saved in their sins. Only those sanctified unto obedience will be saved, according to 1 Peter 1 and 2, Thessalonians 2 and 13. And I told you there's 3 gospel accounts, and I just thought this was interesting. Mark 13:14, it says, "But when you shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing where it ought not." So friends, look at that. Jesus should be standing in the holy place, the most holy place, not in the holy place. But neither should Satan nor the beast be standing anywhere near there in the way of our obedience to God. And when they do, it will bring the climax of the abomination of desolation, is the point. Amen. So let's sing our closing hymn, page 524. Thank you for your attention to my long-winded